Welcome to the Skating Lesson. I'm Jennifer Kirk.
I'm Dave Leese, and on today's show, we're thrilled to interview Adam Rippon.
Adam is the 2012 United States National Silver Medalist, and he's probably best known for his artistry, his connection to the music and the choreography, and I think that's definitely one of the things that I love the most about his skating. What would you say, Dave?
Yeah, he's definitely one of my favorite skaters to watch. He has, the gorgeous line that really reminds you of wonderful skaters of the past. And I just can't get over that Rippon Lutz that he does all the time. I can't imagine training it. It's just so impressive and not rewarded enough. But I'm really excited to speak with Adam, and I know we can't wait to hear about how he's training for the upcoming season and hear about his new programs.
Well, Adam, welcome to the Skating Lesson. We're so thrilled to have you here.
Thank you, guys.
The last time we saw you was at Nationals last season, where you placed 5th, and you were then named to the Four Continents team, but you had to withdraw because of an ankle injury. So what's the status of your injury today?
Today I am 100% healthy. I'm training well, and so it's good. But it took a while, actually. It took a while to get over that, but I'm over it now.
What exactly happened with your ankle?
Well, I was skating. I had a rough season last year. I really got a late start, and I was injured almost the whole summer. And by the time I got to Nationals, I felt like I was in all right shape. But I was really excited to be going to Four Continents because I was training well and I was jumping well. And when I went to Four Continents, I wanted to just put my quads out there again. And so I was training, and it was the end of one of the long days of practice and everything. And I two-footed a quad toe, and it was just, I came down really strangely, and I skated around, and I had done it before a few years ago where I just twisted my ankle, and I knew that the next day that I wouldn't be able to skate. And so I went in, and I was unfortunately correct.
Oh, well, I'm happy it's all healed, and it is almost July, so I'm sure you've been busy training. How has summer training been going?
It's been going pretty well. I mean, I feel like I kind of got a jump start on everything because as soon as I was injured, I went and I started choreographing my programs for this season. And, I'm really looking forward to competing this year.
Perfect. Well, one of the things you said at the end of last season was that you really wanted to work on your off-ice training, on bulking up a bit. And we've seen some of the results of that on your photos on Instagram. You look great. So how has that translated to practice and how you're performing on the ice?
Well, it's really funny that you bring it up because I was really, actually, the reason I started that was because I was injured, and it was with my foot that I was injured. And so I wasn't really doing a lot of the workouts that I had planned. And so I started working out with the pair guys. And so I was working out, and this was while I was still in Detroit. And so I ended up moving out to California in September, and I skated around, and I did my first session. And Rafael comes up to me, and he's like, "Buddy, you're huge." And I was like, "Yeah, I know, thanks." And he was like, "No, you're really fat." And I was like, "Oh, okay." I was like, "What am I gonna do with these now?" So I stopped that actually, and so he doesn't think I'm that fat anymore. So
that's always a good thing.
Yeah. So we're in a better place now.
Well, you look good in all your pictures. You posted one yesterday with Ashley, and I was like, wow, look at their arms. 2 of you. Really
They're having a fun time on the beach in California, Jen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just shadowing and Instagram filters right now.
Right. We all look better on Instagram, no?
Yeah.
We do. Well, you first gained widespread acclaim when you were training with Nikolai Morozov during the 2007-2008 season. You won the Junior Grand Prix final, the World Junior Championships, and Nationals at the junior level. What made you choose to train with Nikolai?
Actually, it was kind of serendipitous how it all worked out. I was training with my very long-time coach, Yelena Sergeyeva, in Philadelphia. And we got to the point where we sat down together, and she was just like, "I don't feel like I can take you much further." And she kept wanting me to go to different people and everything, but I loved her so much I really didn't want to leave. And so we skated at maybe 6 or 7 different rinks in the Philadelphia area. And so I live in northeastern Pennsylvania, and so to go to Philadelphia, it's about 2 hours this way, and to go to New York, it's 2 hours the other way. And I mean, nobody's from Scranton who can skate. So I had to go one way or the other. And it was after nationals in 2007, and I took 2 weeks off, and I went to the rink in Hackensack and started skating. One of the coaches there was familiar with me, and he asked me where Yelena was, and I said that, I wasn't skating with her right now. And maybe a session or an hour and a half later, he came up to me and he said that there was somebody who wanted to talk to me and my mom. And so that somebody was Nikolai Morozov. And so I started skating with him just on his ice with Miki Ando and Daisuke Takahashi, and then slowly just became one of his students.
What do you think Nikolai added to your skating?
Honestly, I feel like as erratic as a personality as he is, to put it very gently, I think that he is an absolute master. I think he's learned how to coach from some very qualified and experienced people, and he just has a wonderful eye for. I wouldn't say that he knows a lot about technique, but he's worked with so many great skaters that he knows what great technique looks like. So when I worked with him, he knew all these drills and everything that I started working on, and it was really the first time I worked with a real choreographer before. So I would say that it was working with somebody who really had a good eye and a really strong choreographer.
Well, you talk about his good eye, and obviously Nikolai was formerly an ice dancer, so is he responsible for teaching technique? You talked about it a little bit, but how would you describe his technique?
I would describe his technique as when I would, let's say, triple Lutz, for instance. When I was trying to do a triple Lutz, he'd be like, okay, show me your Lutz. And then I would do it, and then he would have me try it the way he saw Miki do it. And then he would have me try it the way that Takeshi Honda tried it. And so we just kind of went through a process of elimination of what he thought looked like it was the best for me.
Okay.
And so I feel like it's not a common way of teaching technique, which is why I would say that he's not very developmental, but he is. If you can do it already, he can kind of shift it into something that's more specific towards the skater.
He's a good polisher too, and just putting the whole package together.
Yeah, definitely.
So at that time, you were training alongside Miki Ando, Daisuke Takahashi, and a number of other top skaters. What was it like training with top-level athletes like that every day?
It was awe-inspiring. It was the first time I had skated with people that weren't doing double Lutz as their highest jump. So to say the least, it was incredible. I mean, it was the first time that I saw myself in the same light as those people that you see on TV or that you look up to, and it was probably the first time that it didn't feel like such a far-off dream or goal to get to where they were.
Well, we really met you, I guess, as fans in 2008, and you went to Junior Worlds that season as the reigning Junior Grand Prix final champion. So what was it like heading into Junior Worlds in 2008 as the favorite?
It was a lot of pressure that I wasn't expecting. I had gone into that season with having placed 6th at Nationals in Junior, and so I don't think a lot of people were expecting anything from me, and I got thrown onto the Junior Grand Prix circuit and did really well at my events, and then won the final, and then I won Nationals, and then after that I really felt like there was a lot of pressure to win the title, because if I didn't, I was like a fraud for the whole year. And so I went in and I skated the short program. It was all right, and as soon as I got to the long program, I was like, oh my God, I have to nail this. And so I freaked out a little bit, and I remember my mom went to Bulgaria that year with me, and she said, are you all right? And I looked at my mom, and I started crying before I left. I was just so nervous, and everything ended up working out, but it was a lot of pressure that I wasn't expecting to have.
Well, you handled it so well, winning that title, and you were one of the few men in recent years to win a Junior World title without a triple axel. So did that lack of technical content, did that add to kind of those nerves that you were feeling before the event? And what do you think it is about you that enabled you to handle the pressure so well?
I would definitely say I knew that I would have to be perfect or somewhat close to my best skating. I knew that I had no room for error. I also knew that the rest of the competition really wasn't going to be trying a triple axel, with maybe the exception of a few. So I got lucky in a year that was not lacking in technical difficulty, but the technical difficulty was at a different level.
Mm-hmm.
But really, it was just I was trained so well, and I really wasn't thinking about the other competitors. I was just thinking about what I had done every day, and would just hope that the marks would kind of equal that.
Well, the triple axel has been regarded as your nemesis for several years now. When did you start learning it, and what do you attribute the inconsistency to?
I feel like I would have more success with it if I started learning it earlier, but I started learning it when I started a little bit late when I skated. I started when I was about like 10. And so I started seriously working on it when I was about 17. And I mean, when I started learning it and everybody was telling me Yevgeny Plushenko started landing his at 15, I was like, we're off to a great start. I'm 2 years behind that. And
just
then,
what you want to hear.
Yeah, you're like, you know what, I can do this. And they're like, yeah, Yevgeny was 2 years younger when he landed his. And I was like, all right. And but you know what, I would say that a lot of it was that I mean, I would spend literally like 2 or 3 sessions just doing triple axel after triple axel after triple axel, just trying to prove to myself that I could do it. And eventually it happened on a day that I was like, I give up. And I went in and I was just like, alley oop. And I went up and all of a sudden I landed backwards and I was like, are you kidding me? And so I tried it a few more times and I got it. And I literally got it maybe 2 or 3 weeks before I was leaving for Skate America. This was like my first year senior. Mm-hmm. I landed my first one. And of course, I'd been telling everyone the whole summer that it's like, yeah, it's like I'm landing them all the time. And they're like, it's probably my best jump. But like I landed it 2 or 3 weeks before I left for Skate America. And I was, left the rink and I was like, yeah. And then I got home and was like, thank God. And I would just say that I don't know. I would say my technique wasn't always very strong on it, and the reason I got it was sheer willpower. And I would say that I've had to go back and relearn it so that it could be a more stable jump, because I don't have any physical problem to do it. I would just say that my technique was really based on just sheer will and wanting to land it.
Well, at the start of the 2009 season, you went to the Senior Grand Prix for the first time. You were on that circuit, but you didn't have the immediate success that many had predicted for you. Talk about getting the triple axel just a few weeks before Skate America. So what was your experience like your first time out there on the Senior Grand Prix circuit?
It wasn't what I was expecting, because you see all the girls who go in and they're the junior world champion. They go in and they beat Maria Butrskaya in their first year. And you're like, okay, that's me. Like, right? I'm gonna beat everybody. And so, I went in and I remember that I was really excited because Johnny and Evan, and then I was the third American man at Skate America that year. So I was like, okay, this is great. Johnny and Evan have no idea I'm gonna like kick their ass, and I'll win. Like, I'll win Skate America. And I went in, and then as soon as I started skating, I guess I had forgotten I learned a triple axel like 2 weeks before I got there. And it was just I put a lot of like expectation on myself, and people were looking at me because I was that guy who had that great season in junior the year before. And I didn't have that training that I had the year before to just rely on and like shut my mind off, go out there, just do the job and leave. And I didn't really have that next year, especially with just learning a new jump right before I got there. So I skated decently, but I left a lot of just a lot of silly points on the table and everything. And then I kind of walked away from that event thinking, whoa, that's not what I was expecting the Senior Grand Prix to be like. And so I had a few weeks in between Skate America and Cup of Russia. And this was actually right. Yeah, it was right. Cup of Russia was the last competition I did with Nikolai. And I went home and I trained by myself with one of his assistants because he was just away doing all the other Grand Prix. And so I went and I had 2 axles. I took one out. I went back to my old short program the year before. I just tried to make it a little bit more familiar. Mm-hmm. And my next event was the Cup of Russia or Rus-Telecom Cup. And I ended up getting like 3rd in the short, and I skated a pretty good long and ended up 5th. And it was just a better experience because I put in my arsenal what I was more comfortable with, and I had that time to get used to and be familiar with it.
Well, around that time, it was widely discussed that you weren't being given adequate attention, given the large number of students that Nikolai had. There was a lot of talk that one of your programs wasn't even finished at the time. So, is this a situation? And it's a situation seems to have repeated itself a couple of times in your career. Do you feel it impacted your results your first year as a senior?
Well, I would say hindsight. I understand what Nikolai was saying. And what he told me was that this year doesn't really matter. But when you're that skater who's being told that that season doesn't matter, you're kind of left sitting and feeling like you don't matter and that you're not a priority. On the flip side of that, Nikolai had so many Japanese skaters, and even the year before, I was training. I had an Italian coach. One of my assistant coaches was Italian. And because all my Grand Prix were in Europe, like all those junior Grand Prix are in the middle of kind of nowhere sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I was traveling with Walter. And I ended up just staying and living with his family in Milan for that whole series, just because Nikolai was away getting ready for the Grand Prix and everything with the older skaters. So I understand what Nikolai was saying, but at the same time, he had so many different skaters, and the majority of them were Japanese. So he was spending a lot of time in Japan, and it was just something that, as a 17-year-old kid, it wasn't something that I could just kind of financially or actually just physically do at the time. So I wasn't at the point where I needed to work with him just here and there to touch up. I felt like I had a lot of progress I needed to make. And I just didn't feel like working by myself or with his assistant coaches who were just kind of waiting to see what he would say. I didn't feel like that would be very beneficial, and I felt like I was kind of wasting time a bit.
Well, you changed coaches about a month before the 2009 U.S. Championships. How did you go about making the big change from Nikolai to Brian in time for nationals and to prepare yourself?
Well, I actually, at this time, because I got ready for Cup of Russia, and I got ready almost by myself. I had the Nikolai's assistant. Her name was Olga, and she helped me. And she was this young girl. She's beautiful. She's so nice, and she helped me get ready and everything. And I was like, you know what? I'll get ready for nationals with Olga. It's not a big deal. And I had a lot of getting my programs ready. You know, I didn't feel like they were the best they could be. So I actually went up to Toronto to work with David Wilson over Christmas, and I kind of told him what was going on and what my story was and everything. And he was like, why don't you wait a few extra days? Because at this time, Brian was away in Korea with Yuna at the final. And he's like, Brian will be back in a few days. Why don't you wait, and why don't you just see what it's like? And I said, okay. Because I had fallen in love with David at that point, and I was like, I'll just do whatever David says. And so I worked with Brian. I really liked him. He created such a great atmosphere at the cricket club. And I kind of looked at David. I looked at my mom, who went to Toronto with me because I couldn't drive, so she drove up there with me. And I was like, I think this is a really good place. And of course, I knew the benefits of skating with somebody at a high level, and I didn't want to lose that. And so I was really excited to start training with Yuna as well.
Well, how would you say that Brian's coaching style compares to Nikolai's?
I would say that actually Brian's is very interesting because I had a few coaches when I was there. I had a technical coach. I worked with David, and I had a spin coach, and I also worked with Tracy Wilson while I was there. So there was a big team aspect and you saw everybody almost every day, or at least once or twice throughout the week. And I would say Brian knew that, like, as a skater himself, that it was better for him when he skated if somebody was like, well, no, just like kind of get that feeling back and take the mental aspect completely out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of what he relayed to his skaters. And so I would say that, like, if you can do the things already, he's excellent. He's perfect at keeping you at that mindset and making you want to show up to practice, creating that fun atmosphere that the training isn't so strenuous. And I would say in this kind of the same regard that they had similar styles, different ways of going about it, but I think that the core of what they believed and how they tried to get things out of their skaters was almost the same. And I think maybe that's why it felt like I could adjust quickly.
Well, with Brian as your coach, you went to your first senior national championships, placing 7th. You then announced that you were going to return to Junior Worlds. And I think many in the skating world were a little bit surprised by that decision, because when you return to a competition like that, there's really only one spot that you're gunning for, and there's a ton of pressure. So how were you able to handle that pressure the second time around? How much did you feel, and how was that experience different than winning your first title?
Well, it was different because I never expected to be at Junior Worlds. And the year before, that was the whole goal, to get to Junior Worlds, have this great season. And at this point, getting ready for Junior Worlds, it was, I had that I didn't have that, like, a bad attitude, but I had an attitude where it's like, yeah, like, I'm going to be in LA for Worlds. And when it didn't happen, I wasn't devastated or anything, because I knew that I could go to Junior Worlds again if I wanted to. And I skated well and everything. Not that they're like, here's your ticket, just have fun at nationals. So I went to Junior Worlds just knowing that, it was kind of a way that I could redeem myself from nationals. And this year being completely different was, now in the short program, instead of the required double axel, it was a double or triple axel. And so as soon as that happened, all of the skaters who were doing triple axels the year before are now at the forefront of the junior circuit. And so I knew that I've had almost the whole season to train the triple axel and everything. So I knew when I went there that I needed to do 2 of them in the long and 1 in the short. And so it was just a completely different mindset. Of course, I knew that I needed to win again. Otherwise, I would be almost embarrassed that I showed up. So I knew that pressure was there, but it really wasn't what I thought about until it was over. And was like, I don't really know how I did that.
But I did it. That's all that matters.
Yes.
It was awesome. It's really impressive.
Well, leading up to the 2010 Olympic Games, Yuna Kim was your training mate, the biggest star in the sport right now. With all the pressure that she was under, what was it like watching her prepare for the Olympics, and what was she like as a training mate?
You know what? Watching Yuna train for the Olympics was, it's funny to think about it, because I've skated with a lot of skaters, and I skated with Kimi Meisner before she won Worlds. I skated with Miki Ando the year she won Worlds. And so it was very interesting to compare their work styles and everything. Yuna was just, one of the strongest heads I've ever seen, because she worked very hard. She went in every day. She did her program. She did this. She did that. She was in phenomenal shape. But I had honestly never seen her do a clean long program ever in practice. And I we were really good friends at the time. So when she was at the Olympics, I was asking her how the practices were going, and she's like, "Oh, I skated a clean long in practice today," and I was like, "Of course you did," and it was just a culmination of like she just was in the right place at the right time. She knew that she was the best. She knew that she could be the best, and she just kind of let go and let everything happen. And it was incredible. It was it was surreal and incredible.
We talk about her calling you from the Olympics. So how close were you guys at the time? What was your relationship like?
Well, you know what? It was just us training up in Toronto at the time. So, and before that, she was just skating with the other kids at the rink. So we kind of had a nice friendship and everything, just based on the fact that we both had the same goals, mine at a different level than hers at the time. But both training and had a few of the same Grand Prix and everything. So, you know, we became close because I think she never really had anybody to train with her before. And I really thrived on having somebody there. So I think we connected on that level.
Well, Dave talked about the pressure on her during the Olympic season. Did you ever notice that in practice? You say she didn't do clean run-throughs. So, I mean, whichever stop her programming, did it seem to be affecting her at all? And what do you think it is about her that enabled her to just stay so headstrong and really thrive off of it?
I didn't feel it at all. I would say the only time I felt that she ever had pressure to compete was the World Championships after the Olympics. Mm. Because she came into the rink and she tried to mope through a short program, and I could just read it on her face and her body language and everything that she was over it. She was at that like Olympic letdown that so many people have talked about. And it was I knew that she shouldn't go, but there was a big deal that she had to go because she didn't go to the 4 continents that year before the Olympics in Korea. So it was kind of like she had to go to this because she didn't go to that. But that was probably the only time I ever felt like I saw her have like a breakdown. Mm-hmm. But before that, she just knew that she was better, and she didn't put on airs or she wasn't arrogant to other people, but she just knew on some levels she knew it.
Do you still keep in contact with her?
Not really. I mean, now she lives in Korea and everything, but I'm sure if we saw each other again, we would still be very friendly.
Well, during the 2010 season, we saw you struggle a bit during short programs at nationals, falling on your footwork, doubling a jump at 4 continents, placing 7th, only then at those events to rebound and skate really strong, long programs. So would you say you're somebody who prefers long programs to short programs?
You know what? I feel like the mindset is different, and just because you have to land all these jumps, and everybody just talks about like there's these 3 jumps and you can't mess any of them up.
Pressure.
Yeah, and then in the long, it's not like oh, I can make as many mistakes as I want and I'll just be like really beautiful and no one will care. But it's different because you have that like marathon mentality. You're like, okay, I'll get through these first 3. I'm going to breathe in these spins in the footwork, and then I have the last 5. It's that mentality of like, this is my goal for this 4.5 minutes was where I thrived a little bit. And also that I trained really hard and I trained really well. So I knew that I would have no issue getting through them. And I would say that was probably it. I mean, I had no problem doing a short program at home and everything. I think it was just more like the overthinking it and overanalyzing.
Yeah, it's a different kind of nerves. I can feel that too.
Well, after the 2010 Olympic Games, you were chosen to compete at your first World Championships after Johnny and Evan withdrew. How would you describe your experience at your first World Championships?
I would say actually I was coming into the rink every day and I was like going through a program kind of not really knowing because Johnny was saying in the media that he was still going to compete. And then all of a sudden Ryan called me and he said, I might not be able to compete. I hurt my foot pretty badly. And he's like, I just wanted to call you and give you the heads up just so that you know, aren't at home sitting around watching Family Guy and like our training. And I said, okay. So that's when I started taking it a bit more seriously. And then maybe a few days later, Ryan confirmed with everyone that he was well enough to compete. And so it's like, okay, I guess I'm not going to go. This is really hard, but we'll see. And then a day or two later, a week before I had to leave, Johnny withdrew and I was added to the team. So I had still been training and everything, but I went in with completely no expectations. I mean, I know a lot of people go in and they think, we need the 3 spots, we need this, we need that. And I just went in and was like, I don't care. Like, I'm in Torino. I saw this on the Olympics 4 years ago. This is unreal. This is incredible. And I'm just going to skate. Like, I just felt so privileged to be part of that world championship team and to be there with Brian and Yuna after they had won the Olympics that I knew that it would be all right. And so that's kind of my mentality for that whole event.
You had a lot more success internationally than you had nationally at that point. How do you compare the pressure of competing at Worlds to competing at Nationals?
I would say it's completely different because at that point, there are no... When you have to be a place, I think that's when it becomes a daunting task that you have to be this place at Nationals or the rest of your season's over. And when you get to those internationals, of course you think that, you know, you want to do well for the team and everything. And you don't want to be that person who does the worst and everyone's like, oh, it's okay. Like, you don't. Nobody wants that. And so I would say the pressure is different because it's more on yourself. And I think when it's on yourself, just to do your best, I know that I can skate really well. And I think when the pressure was I needed to be this place, I tried to skate for the place instead of trying to compete to be my best.
Yeah, it makes you feel like you have something to lose as opposed to you're going on the offense.
Yeah.
So in addition to competing at your first World Championships, 2010 was a very successful season for you. You won 4 continents, you won the Japan Open, and you had good success on the Grand Prix at the start of the 2011 season. And then you failed to make the podium at Nationals. How big of a disappointment was that for you? Take us through that event.
It was a huge disappointment. That was probably... Like I said before about the Junior Worlds, that if I didn't do this, I felt like I had tricked everybody into thinking that I was this great skater. And I honestly, that's what I felt like. I felt like for some reason I skated at the Japan Open. I was so well trained for that event, and I was skating well. And it was the beginning and end of the event. It was the beginning of the season. It was October, and I ended up beating Yevgeny Plushenko and Daisuke Takahashi, and I was like, wow. And I think that's when people were like, okay, Adam Rippon might be for real. And so my Grand Prix weren't that bad. And then by the time I got to Nationals, I felt like if I'm not the national champion, I tricked everybody into thinking that I was this amazing skater. And so it wasn't like I needed to medal or I just needed to go to Worlds. I knew I needed to be the national champion. I was like, I did my cover shoot for Skating Magazine. I did International Figure Skating Magazine. And if I wasn't the national champion, I felt like I needed to send like an apology letter to everybody who was like it was just, I knew it in my mind. I knew it. And as soon as I skated a bad short, I just felt like I tricked myself or tricked others into thinking. So it was very hard, especially after that short program. And then after that, I was just like, I just need to skate well. So I ended up having a good long and pulling up, but it was mentally a tough event to get past.
Well, since then, how have you learned how to handle that kind of feeling like there's all these expectations, you feel like you have to perform for other people, be a certain way? How have you learned to use that in your favor?
I would say that I was just really dejected, and I went to that 4 continents just trying to just finish the year, because that was the year that they sent Brian Ross and Ricky to Worlds, and they were 1, 2, 3, and then 4, 5, and 6 was Jeremy, myself, and Armin. And so we went to 4 continents, and they went to Worlds. And so I just really wanted to get through the season and just finish it. And when that was my mentality, I knew that it wasn't going to be spectacular. If it wasn't like, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to fight, I'm going to do this. When it was like, I just want to get home and just start over. And expectations, it took a really long time. It took the first part of the next season to kind of remember that it's okay to like just go out there and skate. And it's a difficult thing, and I think everybody struggles with it at some time, but I would say that I've just experienced so much that I can't really pinpoint how I deal with it, but I know that it doesn't really affect me as much.
Good. Well, around that time, you started to perform the Rippon Lutz, a triple Lutz with your arm over your head. So difficult. I really admire you. But that element, it only receives the same amount of points as a traditional triple Lutz. So do you think that's fair? And why continue doing it if some may say the risk may not be worth the reward?
Well, you know, I love attention. So like...
Don't we all?
Yeah. So even if it doesn't get the same amount of points, I honestly tried it because I was doing a Tano Lutz, and I was just doing one hand, and I just felt a little bit badly because I was skating with Brian at the time that everybody kept, like, literally everyone who saw me do it was like, isn't it so funny how you have a student that does Brian Boitano's jump, and of course, like, to him it like wasn't funny at all. So he's like, yeah,
yeah, really funny.
Yeah, and so I would skate like an extra session, and I would do like 35 double Lutzes with my hands up, and then one day I was just like, here goes nothing. And I tried it, and it took the whole summer to figure out the technique, and of course all my other jumps went crunk right after, because it's like, why? I don't...
Where are my arms going?
Yes, I don't...
It's a sort of gang symbol.
Yeah, totally. And so, you know, everything went haywire, and I was like, at least I can do this jump. And it took a while to adjust and really consider it a completely different jump that it doesn't receive. I feel like maybe it would have been kind of cute if I got the innovative element bonus the first time I had done it. I completely understand why I didn't. I just did a triple Lutz, and this could have been an accident. And so
I don't think many people would be like, whoops, my arms are over me.
Yeah.
Didn't need to do that.
You know, I understand. I really did it just to boost the GOE, because at the end of the day, even if the triple Lutz isn't amazing, most of the time if I put my arms over my head, I'll still get a +2 on it. And it's something that nobody else is doing, and I think it was something that I thought would set me apart.
Definitely does.
When speaking with Tim Gable on the show, he mentioned that Frank Harrell's split with Michelle was one of really the defining moments of his time training with Frank. You were obviously present when Yuna and Brian split. At the time, did you see it coming?
You know what, it was an interesting series of events that, you know, it's not my place to make a lot of comments on them, but I can just tell you in general, I see where they both were coming from. It wasn't something that I really saw coming, but it was something that really changed the dynamic of my own training. And I would say at the beginning of the season for me, that next year, I mean, Yuna was in a different transition of her career. She was kind of settling into being an Olympic champion and everything. But I would say that my mentality was like, you know what, I'm the next guy, for Brian, like I'm that guy. So like my mindset, that was it. Like I just had to be awesome. And it wasn't like I put a lot of pressure on myself to be good or skate better. I just knew it was, and that's how it had to be. And then I would say by the end of that year, that's when I felt all that explosion kind of settled down, and then that's when the ashes were coming down and everything. And I would say that split really changed the dynamic of how I was training.
Well, speaking with Tim, he's talked about that Frank went through a hard time after Michelle left and that it changed his dynamic with Frank. Did it change your dynamic with Brian at all?
Yes. And yes and no. It changed the dynamic with a few of my other coaches as well, who I was working with. I mean, it was just a strange series of events with the press releases being put out on both sides, and then having them both be at the rink after making press releases. It was surreal, and it was confusing for me because I had seen them go through so many positive ups and downs, that it was disheartening to see two people who were packaged together as one, to have such a quarrel between each other. So I would say it was definitely a defining moment in my training in Toronto.
Sounds like a divorce,
Yeah.
Like,
it was.
You're the child of divorce.
Yeah.
Being in that
Yeah, but they don't stay in
environment.
the house, or at least you hope
Well,
not.
that's like the really awkward divorce.
It was.
Living under the same
because
roof.
what people were. I mean, there was a press release, and then I think Yuna wanted to come into the rink just to be like, I still skate here and everything, and it just got to be too much for the both of them, and it was just it was a really unfortunate thing that happened, but they both have walked away from it and moved on and everything, and I'm sure that if they were to meet today, it would be a little bit better, I would hope.
Well, after the 2010-2011 season, you made the decision to train with Yuka and Jason. They were already working with Jeremy Abbott and Alyssa Sisney. Why did you choose to move there? And did you have any hesitation knowing that you probably wouldn't be their top priority right away?
I actually, after working with Brian, I was just working with my technical coach at the time, Ghislaine, and he was kind of helping me, and he wanted me to kind of go and try out with other people, and I wanted to as well, because I knew what it was like when Yuna was here, when she wasn't working with Brian, and I didn't want to go through the same thing, even though my split with Brian was less dramatic completely. So I went out to California, and I worked with Frank Carroll, and I worked with him, and I liked Mr. Carroll a lot, and I asked him if he would have time to take me on as a student. And at the time, it was, Evan wasn't sure if he was coming back or not, and it was something that he said that he couldn't commit to. And I completely understood, but for me, that was my next option of where I was going. I didn't have another plan. I didn't have a plan B. So I knew that I couldn't just skate around and do nothing. I needed to get my programs done. So I went and I worked with Pasquale Camerlengo that year. And I really loved the rink and the facility in Detroit. And I thought, you know what, if worse comes to worse, I could always skate here, and I could train with Pasquale, because I trained with Nikolai before, and he was a dancer and everything. Of course, Pasquale had 10 times the teams that Nikolai had. So I skated. I was talking to Alyssa, and I was saying, you know what, I really like it here. I think this would be a really great place for me to train. There's no way Yuka and Jason would ever take me, because why? It didn't make. I was just like, no. And I asked them if they would help me through the season, and if they'd be willing to go to events and everything with me, and they said that they'd be able to work it out. And so I was incredibly grateful for their generosity and everything to extend and help me and and take me on as a student that season, because I kind of felt like I had this year of like I'm not everything that I thought I was, and then Mr. Carroll tells me he's busy, and I'm like I like everything is like it's not what I thought it would be, and so I felt like if finally somebody wanted to help me again, so I was really grateful.
Well, in addition to coaching Alyssa, they had Jeremy Abbott as one of their students. What was it like training with him every day? In what ways did you guys push each other because you were such close competitors?
Yeah, it was a different dynamic because before it was skating with other
Female
skaters.
yeah.
Yeah, I had skated with Daisuke Takahashi, but before, yes, I was only skating with the females. And so it was a different dynamic because at the same time we were vying for exactly the same things. The U.S. title, the 2 world spots. It was different, but Jeremy and I found a balance that worked, and heading into nationals and everything, we didn't always skate the same sessions, but when we did, it was never mean-spirited competitive skating, but it was competitive, and I would say that it really helped me to skate well at nationals that year.
Well, one of the great moments from the 2012 National Championships was when you and Jeremy did finish first and second, making that world team, you winning the silver medal. That was your most successful nationals to date. So take us through that experience, and how big of a role do you think that coaching change to Jason Dunge and Yuka Sato played in your success?
Well, Jason was very helpful in helping me just keep calm and not get over. If I don't feel like I'm skating well, I'll skate all day, hours and hours, and repeat things over and over. And he was really like, just take it back. You're fine. Nothing's bad. Nothing bad is going to happen. It's all within you. And Yuka Sato is like a vision of like heaven coming down. She's like one of the sweetest people, and like you just being in her presence, you just feel calmer and better. And I would say that they just helped me not worry about external things, and they helped me just keep it all in check and everything, and they helped me get my confidence back. So I would say that was what they really helped me with when I worked with them.
Well, after placing 13th at the 2012 World Championships, you announced that you were going to leave Jasa and Yuka to make a coaching change to Rafael Arutyunyan. Why did you think the change was necessary, and why Rafael?
Well, when I had worked with Frank had repeatedly told me that he wished that I didn't come the week I did, because I think on some level, Mr. Carroll knew that I would really click with Rafael. And at the same time, I knew getting ready for the Olympics and everything would be really difficult and mentally draining, training alongside with Jeremy.
Yeah.
Even though we had a very nice, we had a good friendship and everything, I just knew it would be hard for the both of us. And I knew that I needed that push of somebody who would do anything for me to be on that spot. And it was just something I had always thought about. And Rafael and I had actually a few mutual friends that had always suggested that we had worked together and everything. And it was just something that I had always thought about, and I was very often was like, I wonder what would have happened if I had been out there when Rafael was there. And when Frank brought it up as well, I was like, you know what, maybe, I don't know. So I asked Yuka and Jason if it would be all right if I went out and if I skated with Rafael for 2 weeks. And at the time, it was right after Champs Camp, which is our camp before the Grand Prix and everything, in late August. And I was injured. So, and then Rafael thought I was fat. So it was like this fat, like, hobbling into the rink boy, and just, I was a disaster, because I was training and everything, but, like, I just wasn't in competition shape. And Rafael just had this plan right away, and what he told me was he would help me in whatever capacity he could. Whether it was I called him and he just told me over the phone like of things that I could do and different things like that, or if I came in and skated for 2 weeks at a time and then left, or if I wanted to skate with him full time. And I just knew that it was something that I needed to do, because in my mind, I think we all have these like ideal situations, and in my mind, where I always saw myself was with somebody like Rafael, and Rafael's been a complete godsend in my life, and I'm thankful for Yuka and Jason for allowing me to go out there, because they were always so generous with their time and everything towards me, and I am so grateful that I get to skate with Rafael now today.
You've trained with both Russian and North American coaches over the years. Both schools of coaches generally have considered opposite jumping technique. How has this impacted you? Has it ever been a problem? And which do you find to be more successful for your skating?
I would say that the Russian mentality is a little bit rounder, and things are based on circles and edges and degrees of leaning and everything. And it was something that I was brought up ever since I started skating. So that made a lot of sense to me. And I was also fortunate that when I skated with Nikolai, he just kind of whatever he worked. And when I skated with Brian, it was based on feeling, and that made a lot of sense to me. And then it was probably the first time I encountered like American quote unquote technique was when I worked with Jason. And it was just, it worked, and I feel like I've been lucky to work with a lot of people, because I can take what I found really helpful from this person and kind of put it together for what I feel like could be the ultimate package for me, I guess. I don't know. And I would say that for me, I just understand it's not even Russian, because I've worked with a bunch of Russians and everybody's different, but I would say that I don't know, Dave. This is a hard one.
I didn't think this would be the tough question.
Right. I think you've answered it though. Like, you're saying that certain coaches have certain techniques, but you don't feel like there's a box that's Russian technique is in this box. And
no, because you know what? Of course, I've been with a lot of coaches, but I feel like I'm not the only one that coaches of skaters have been with a lot of coaches. So I feel everyone's idea might have like a root to what it is, to what that basic technique is. And I would say that for the most part, I felt like I've had a lot of success with
the more circular.
Russian coaches. Yeah.
Well, we saw you struggle a bit at Nationals last season. You placed 5th. And as you're heading into this season, you're facing some pretty tough competition here in the U.S. People who are going to be at Nationals. We have Evan. We have a handful of really hungry guys all gunning for those 2 spots on the Olympic team. So what do you think is most vital that you focus on in training over the next couple months in order to ensure that you win yourself a spot on that team?
You know, I felt actually fortunate that I survived Nationals, and I was 5th, and I was assigned to the 4 continents team and everything, just because the way I was skating at Nationals was honestly the way I should have been skating in the summer prior to that season. And I felt like if I put that time period and moved it back to when I was injured, that's maybe where I would have been. And I think it was a godsend that I wasn't able to go to 4 continents, and I was able to get those my programs for this season choreographed and start training them already. I feel like I kind of, it's funny to say this, that, because I'm always Adam, but I feel like I'm starting to be that Adam Rippon that I always thought I was again. Mm-hmm. And I want to go into competitions this year, and I want people to be really terrified that I'm in the event. And I felt like
that. I like that.
Yeah. I just felt like for a few years that nobody was scared, and they're like, okay, well, because I know, Jenny, that you can attest to this, because I feel like, I don't know if you do this, because I don't want to like throw you under the bus with me, But like, I know that I would go into an event, I would read the list, and I'd be like, I'm gonna beat them. I know them. That's gonna be hard.
We all
yes.
do it. And
Yeah,
you have this idea in your head of like what spot you think you could get.
yeah.
Like,
You're
I'm
like,
gonna get a bronze here.
Yes, yeah, totally. And so I just imagined everybody looking at the list. They're like, Adam Rippon, no, I beat them. No, no. Like, I want people to be like, oh God, Adam's at the event. Like, I want that, and I feel like I'm in a position now that I've been off the radar ish for about a year and a half, ever since Japan Open. I would say that I've been on the radar and then kind of fizzled out and everything. And I finally feel like I'm in a position where I can really scare a lot of people again.
Be that silent assassin this year. Just go in under the radar and kill him.
Totally.
Silent, he wants the attention, Jenny. He wants to be the
you gotta start
bold
out and you have to.
He wants to stab him from the front. Come on.
It's all about that initial shock, though, when they're like, "Whoa, where did he come from?"
It's the initial shock, completely. But you're right, Dave. I do like attention, so we'll see where it
coming
goes
for you guys this season. So right now, at this point in training, how confident are you that we'll see you in Sochi?
Well, I'm not Nostradamus, so I can't tell you, but I can tell you that it's still June and I'm working, but everything that I'm doing, and I'm having those moments where I'm like, you know what, in a month or two, this is all going to be there. And my goal is to be at the Olympics, and to not just be at the Olympics, to be one of those guys in the top 5, maybe medal. Of course, that's like my dream and everything. But to be on that team event and to be in the singles event, that's my goal. And I feel like the track that I'm on now, I feel it's attainable. And I also feel like I'm training well and skating well, and I'm doing things that in the past I was able to do for a little bit, but then I wasn't able to. It's like with the quads and everything. I feel like I'm in a good position to make a sneak attack and be on that team.
So our spies have told us that you're going to be relocating to the Toyota Sports Center in September. There are going to be a number of top skaters there, including Evan Lysuchak and Dennis Ten. Are you someone who likes a lot of competition on a daily basis?
I'm so intrigued that you guys have spies.
They're everywhere.
We're good journalists.
Well, I can neither confirm or deny that those rumors are true.
No comment.
Yeah. But if they are true, I am very much looking forward to it, because I know Evan, because he would come up to Arrowhead every now and then, and Dennis and I trained together last season because he was living in Arrowhead and skating up here, and then going down to Palm Desert to work with Frank in Palm Springs. And I think it'll be a very positive thing for me, because when I'm always in that competition mode, it's not always a bad thing. And I think I'm somebody who kind of thrives in that sort of environment.
Well, another way that you thrive is in your choreography, your connection to the program, to audiences when you perform. So what can you tell us about your programs for the upcoming season?
Well, since I had the early start to this season, Rafael had asked that he was really diligent in asking that I skate to Afternoon of a Fawn for my free skate. And he was equally as diligent as that I did it with Tom Dixon. And I said, I don't know where any of this is coming from, but you got it.
He had a vision.
Yeah, he had a vision. And so I went out and I worked with Tom, and it was everything I could have asked for. And I loved working with him, and I made it. I made the program, and when it was over, I just had this feeling that it felt like a signature piece of mine. Like, it just felt like this was me. This is who I was supposed to skate to this. And so I love my my long program so much this year. And with my short program, Rafael was like, we'll put it together ourselves, because there's not a lot of time and everything. And it ended up working out that I met Cindy Stewart out here in California. And she helped me put together an exhibition. And when I put the exhibition together, I was like, I have to do my short program with Cindy. And so I wanted to skate to this flamenco piece. And it was something Kurt Browning had used in a show before. And one of my, Raphael's wife, kept saying that she felt like I just needed time to like work with somebody who was a flamenco dancer. Because she knew me and she knew that I would want to be as authentic as possible without being over the top or just being like, it's Spanish. And so,
Olé!
yeah, exactly. And
Nightmares of Sarah Hughes. Okay.
That Don Quixote program. Do you remember when she I think she put her hands on her hips? It was like dun 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 dun.
Yeah, but it was never on the music, Jenny.
and I ate it up. I loved it with her like corset thing and everything.
Right. The flower in her hair.
Yeah, exactly. Love
Sorry, keep going.
And so I wanted to do something Spanish because I remember one time, I don't know who it was, but they told me, I said, I wanted to skate to Spanish music. And they were like, no, you can't. And I was like, why? And they're like, you're not Spanish. And I was like, when is this a qualification? I was like, I'm pretty sure Miki Ondo's skating to Carmen right now. Like, why can't I skate? Like, she's not Spanish. Like, I don't, like,
Last time I checked.
Yeah, like, she does not need a DNA test. Like, I can tell you right now, she is not Spanish. And so it was just in my head that, like, this was my, like, of course I can skate to Spanish. You're dumb. And so I was so diligent on doing that. And somebody had suggested this, like, horn piece that was actually, like, the melody of Carmen. And I listened to it, and I was like, cool. And then from there, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go full out, and I ended up using a few pieces of Carmen for a short program. And I know it's not like the most original, but I love it, and I think that everybody will love it too, because it came together really well, and Cindy was amazing.
Oh, bring that flair.
Yes.
A little sass.
Totally.
Your style has received so many compliments and favorable comparisons, even to John Curry. So to who do you attribute developing the style of your skating to?
I would say that there's not one singular person I can say. I would say that I've been inspired by a lot of people to help create my own style. I've been inspired by John Curry. I've also, I've really loved Janet Lynn's skating as well. And on the flip side of that, something that you might not expect was, like, I always really admired Yevgeny Plushenko and Alexia Gudin's style of skating. Not for its, like, incredible aesthetics or anything, but especially Yevgeny, his performance quality. Of course, he doesn't have those transitions and everything, but he's really one of the only people that you can hate it or love it, but he can stand in the middle of the ice and, like, shake his hips for a second. Right. And you're like, you know what? This is gross, but this works. And
I hate it, but I love it.
Yeah, totally. And he just sells whatever. And I totally admire that. And that's a quality that I love about his skating. And I would say just my, like, general interest in dance and everything, and those skaters has kind of helped me develop into, that style I like. And working with David Wilson and Tom Dixon, and just a huge hodgepodge of amazing, incredible minds.
Well, judging by your Twitter and your Instagram, you're one of the most popular skaters on Team USA. So who are you closest with?
Well, Ashley is basically like my family. And I mean, she's my sister for sure. And I've trained with Christina Gao before, and Mirai Nagasu I love so much, because when I first moved out here, I was always visiting Mirai in California, and So I love Mariah as well. I mean, I really get along with pretty much everybody, but if we were saying like who's I'm the closest with, for sure, Ashley.
Well, Ashley Wagner is one of our favorite skaters, and I think anyone who watches our show knows that we love talking about her and her fiery personality. So what is she like off the ice?
Well, we have this in common because I love talking about her too, and I love her fiery personality. Off the ice, she is, well, with me, she's a hot mess, and it's amazing. And so I just we have such a good like relationship with each other, and I know that like no matter what, we're always going to be there during skating, after skating. We've been there for each other with our high of highs and lows of lows, and it's just I would say off the ice she's just very genuine, and sometimes she's shy, but with me she's just like just crazy, and it's awesome.
Love it. Well, it was recently announced that we're going to see you this December at the NHK Trophy, and you were only awarded one Grand Prix event. Was that at all a disappointment? There is that TBA spot available at Skate America, so how motivated are you to fight for that spot?
Oh, I'm incredibly motivated. You know, I feel like over the past 4 years, I've done enough to prove that, you know, I'm not ho-hum and just like, oh, I'm just love skating. And like, I feel like I've gone to the World Championships twice and placed 6th and 13th, which isn't amazing, but I was on that team. I was a national silver medalist, 4 continents champion. I feel like I have a right to be considered on that for that Skate America spot. And you know, I'm going to be skating and showing everyone who will watch my programs and everything, and that I'm in shape and everything. That being said, you know, I only have NHK right now. It wasn't to go back. It wasn't a disappointment. It was something that I knew might happen because I had to pull out of 4 continents. And I had to do a senior B after that, and I went only to get the points to raise my world ranking, which I had no idea about. So about the points and everything, because in years past I had just gotten 2 Grand Prix, and all of a sudden people are like, "Oh, you're not going to have the points," and I was like, "What?" And yeah, it's like I don't just skate and go, and I that's when I knew that I had to go to this event to get at least 1 Grand Prix, and I knew that the possibility of getting 2 was out there, but I also knew that getting 1 initially would also be something that could happen. So it wasn't a disappointment. It was just a realization of knowing that I would have to go out there and show that I'm ready and show that I'm viable for that spot, and know that if I go out there, I'm going to make a strong statement for U.S. figure skating.
Well, do you have any plans to compete at any summer events or senior B events?
Well, right now I'm going to, well, I actually, before we did this interview, I was filling out my application for Glacier Falls in Anaheim this summer. So I'm going to be doing Glacier Falls. I didn't finish the application yet, so I'm contingently going right now. But I will finish once we finish this up. And so I'll be doing Glacier this year. And right now, that's it. I might add another little event in there before that. But right now, I don't have any senior Bs planned. And I'm going to be doing what I can to get that Skate America spot.
Rooting for you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so many are rooting for you to make that Olympic team this year. As you look ahead to the upcoming season, what are your goals? And beyond 2014, do you plan on staying in the competitive arena? What are your plans?
You know, it's so funny to be at like this point, and that I could consider retiring. And I admire people who stay in and like Shizuka, who was always kind of there, and then all of a sudden she just had this breakout world championships and then fizzled and was like, then came back and won the Olympics. Or somebody like Todd Eldridge, who was able to maintain a very long career and everything. I can't see myself retiring just yet. I know Rafael told me that he has verbatim told me, he comes up to me and he's like, buddy, you can do whatever you want the year after next. He's like, I just really want you to skate this season and next season, and then we can sit down and we can see where you are. But I really feel like that you have to do this for me. And so I completely trust him, and I can't see myself retiring just yet. Of course, I have those moments in practice where I'm like, okay, well, when I go home, I'm going to write my retirement letter. But for the most part, I feel like I'm improving and that I have a lot more in my competitive spirit to give.
You sound like you're in a very good headspace, and I have the feeling that your best days are in front of you, and this is going to be a very, very strong season for you. It's going to be one of those breakout years. And Dave and I, we had so much fun talking to you. Thank you for giving us your time. Go fill out that application so we can see you at that event. And thank you so much again, Adam. This was a lot of fun.
Sure. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.